I don't know if we do afford this. That's the honest answer. Some months I'm like, we're doing it. We figured it out. We are like killing it. And other months I'm like, oops. Uh-oh.
My guest today is Erika Velazquez Alpern, fractional CMO, founder of Tactile, and one of the sharpest marketers I know. She came up through brand and media at places like Morning Brew and The Guardian. She has built her own business twice, and she's raising 2 kids in a pup in Brooklyn. But this episode isn't just business inspiration. As always, we're getting into the actual numbers. Erika breaks down what her business actually brings in and the difference between a good month and a slow one.
Am I going to get to a 30K month? That's the dream, right? And then there have been other months I'm like, was that a 5K month?
She shares what she charges as a fractional CMO and why leaving her salary job actually meant earning more.
The monthly amount that I was making was more than I was making as a full-time employee.
We get into the marketing money she's watched businesses light on fire.
They had like a 7K a month marketing budget, which again, depending on where you are in your business, that may sound really big, that may sound really small. And they were spending 6K of that on meta ads.
And what it really costs to raise 2 kids in Brooklyn.
But my daughter is in private twos program, and it is like $3,500 a month.
I'm Ashley, certified financial planner, founder of The Fiscal Femme, and I'm asking the question everyone is already wondering. How do people actually afford their lives? This is How Do You Afford This? Welcome to the show, Erika.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have this conversation. I've known you for how long? 10 years?
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
It's wild, before kids.
I know. A whole other life.
Yes. So it's very fun to get to chat with my incredible friends and showcase their wisdom and the incredible things that you're doing in the world. I want to get right into it. You run your own agency full time. You're raising 2 kids and a pup in Brooklyn. How do you afford this?
I don't know if we do afford this. That's the honest answer. I think that raising 2 kids in Brooklyn is definitely an expense. I wouldn't trade it in for anything, but it's definitely a roller coaster. And some months I'm like, we're doing it. We figured it out. We are killing it. And other months I'm like, oops, uh-oh. But it is really this combination of I've built a business that baked in revenue from day one. And we needed to be a 2-income household. And so I really needed to, from the day I decided to start my own business, to figure out how I was going to make money. And I also benefit from the fact that I'm married to someone who has a very stable job with health insurance and a wonderful salary. And so that gives us some sense of stability.
And for now, you're staying in Brooklyn. Are you Brooklyn forever? Forever.
I'm Brooklyn forever. I grew up in New York, and I just don't think I know how to live anywhere else. People are always like, oh, it's so hard to raise kids in Brooklyn. I think there are aspects of that are very true. But for me, it feels the easiest.
Natural.
Yeah, it feels natural.
Yeah.
Our families are here too. So that's another piece of how we afford this is that my parents are in New York City. My husband's parents are in Long Island. They're retired. And so we have significant childcare support. We obviously have to, in terms of the weekdays, we have kids that our kids are in school. We're also paying for childcare, but we actually don't have a date night sitter because we just use our families. So that really helps too.
Yes. I want to talk about the business and give a little background because, like I said, we met many years ago. We were both running businesses of the same name, but I think they look very different than when we met. So can you share a bit about your business journey, the highs, the lows, why you do what you do?
Yeah, of course. Oh my God, it looks so different. It's really just in name only the same business.
Right.
Which is crazy. So to rewind to a decade ago. So I built my career in marketing. I came up through brand, spent my career in media. And in 2016, coming out of the 2016 election, I was feeling real burnout from working in political media. And I was also meeting all of these incredible early stage founders. And it felt really energizing. And I felt myself falling in love with marketing again in the conversations I was having with them. And so I decided to start a boutique agency called Tactile in 2016 that would primarily work with women-led businesses in very early stages. And it felt so good in my soul, right? It was just like the most fun work. I got to meet the most incredible people. And I ran it for about 3 years. But towards the end of that, the math just stopped mathing because I had built and it's interesting because when I started Tactile the first time around, everyone was like, really great idea. Love it. Feels really good in the soul, but like it's not a sustainable business to work with startups. And I don't entirely disagree, but at that time, it was starting to wear on me the way I had set up the business. And I had this opportunity to go in-house at Morning Brew, and I leapt at the opportunity. I was also missing being part of a team. I was craving some sense of stability. And so I started to shut the door on Tactile. I went back in-house. I was at Morning Brew, then went to a Series B startup for 3 years after that. And as that company was headed towards a transaction, I had this moment where I was like, okay, I'm going to help them through this transition. And then either I go to my next in-house role or I try this again. And I was really lucky in that the startup I was at, Newsstand, agreed to be my first client. And I'm actually like very risk averse. So I needed that. Like I needed the contract before I would commit to working for myself.
I
And
think
so
people would be surprised like how many entrepreneurs are actually risk averse.
I know.
Yeah.
I talk to so many, and I actually think that some of the best founders I've met are this combination of irrationally optimistic but risk averse. They like believe in the thing, they're drinking the Kool-Aid, and they're also intentional and measured in other ways.
Thinking a little bit about the downside.
Yeah, totally. And because it's tough, man. It's just like such
Yeah.
a roller coaster. And, when I left Newsstand and I was like, I'm going to revive Tactile. And at the time I was like, I'm going to build it again as an agency, but this time with like an expanded scope and working with startups of all shapes and sizes and legacy brands, reimagining. I was like, oh, and great. I had this anchor client. And then it got really slow for a couple of months. And I had to like really dig deep into all of the feels and figure out how I was going to build this business. Was it slow because it was summer? Was it slow because the business model actually didn't make sense? So it's always an experiment. And I think now it's in an interesting place in that I've really shifted to Tactile just being me and not trying to build an agency and having it be really more focused on being a fractional CMO while also having a community piece and hosting events and workshops and advising early stage founders. So it's been a journey in two
So
parts.
how would you describe the difference between the original was like a traditional agency for women-led founders of startups.
Yeah.
And now it is like you are a fractional CMO with a community and events.
Yeah.
Is
And
that
I
how you
think that the difference is honestly just like taking a look at why people were coming to me into Tactile. So when I launched Tactile in 2016, I also think the like landscape was really different. And so it made more sense to build a brand. And I felt like people were coming to Tactile because of the mission. And I had a small staff, which allowed me to take maternity leave and like, they opened up, it felt scalable in other ways. But this time around, I think people at the end of the day trust people. And all of the clients I've had have really just come to me, the person, right? And there are a couple, I experimented with like that agency model and I had a couple of clients where I, staffed up and they were very open to it. But at the end of the day, the work that I was the most excited about was when I felt like I was part of the team. And it's kind of like best of both worlds. So now it's really like Tactile is the umbrella for all the things that I do. And so that's that combination of working as a fractional CMO where I like really embed in the company. It's also a consistent retainer, which is really nice.
Yeah.
And then I have something I call Pocket CMO, which is how I still get to work with those early stage founders, which are so, that work is so energizing. And that's a little bit more of like a consistent package. So it's like essentially $3,000. Someone works with me through like one-on-one sessions. It's not necessarily like the most scalable, but it just feels really fun. And then the workshops and events are really just because I think marketing and creativity at large have been in like an existential crisis for a decade. And as marketers, especially, we sometimes get like pigeonholed within the industry that we work in. And I've been lucky to be able to break out of that and work with media companies and beauty brands and tech startups. And so I think it's really fun to bring all of those pieces together and find ways for people to connect outside of their like day-to-day work.
I love it. And something that has always like stood out to me and I've really respected about your business is, and I think I've taken a similar path in my business, is that you focus on creating a model around who you want to serve and what lights you up and what's aligned with your values and not necessarily the clients or the business model that makes the
Yeah.
most money.
Yeah.
What do you think right? We're both like, well, yeah. What do you think the trade off of that is?
There are so many. I definitely have moments where I'm like, damn it, I wish I was one of those people or marketers who could just like sell an empty coffee cup and feel great about it. And like, I would probably be killing it if I was. But
You got
I,
the skills.
I,
Yeah.
I wish. I think there are a couple. So for me, it's interesting because I have taken on clients where it was for the money, and I felt like I was not as good at the work, right? So I do think that like part of why I've designed the business is that yes, I want to feel good about the work. I want to believe in the people I'm working with. I want to believe in what they're building. Almost all of my clients tend to be like somewhat purpose driven in what they're building, and that feels really good and I can get excited. But I also feel like I'm just better at that work. And so that is the plus. I think the trade off is that I I'm leaving money on the table. And so when I'm booked and busy, that feels fine. And I feel like I'm focused. But, summers are slow. And I've had moments, especially in the last like month, where I'm like, damn, I probably shouldn't be as choosy as I am, or I should be a little bit more open. So it's a journey. But I think it's like forest of the trees. When I look at the year at large, I've always been successful when I choose things that align with my own values.
Yes. And I was going to ask, like, do you think there's a privilege to being able to do that? And what has set you up to be able to do that? But so I want to hear your answer to that. But it also sounds like if the work is not as successful with something you're not aligned with, then it's yeah, there's more to it than that.
Yeah, totally. I think that yes, there's definitely a privilege in doing that, right? And listen, never say never, right? Like if I'm in a position, like I'm like we live in expensive Brooklyn with our two kids, we need to have a two-income household, right? And so if things got really slow, then maybe I'd have to like get over my criteria for the types of companies I
Or
work with.
like you said, broaden. It's such a balance,
Broaden.
and it's
Yeah.
not. It's very gray, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to broaden. Exactly. I like that term. But I think that the way I've been able to set that up it is in the model. So the other piece is like when I was building an agency, like volume was really important, right? It was constantly like building up the business, the book of business, getting new clients, then being able to service those clients. And I have people servicing those clients. So if I lose one, I have to make sure I'm replacing that revenue. And it felt like I actually had to think with a slightly different criteria.
Hmm.
And so part of why I've built my practice to focus a little bit more on these engagements where I get to embed is because it allows me to be a bit more choosy because I'm essentially like working there for a period of time. And that has been really helpful. Again, there are clients that I've worked with in that capacity where maybe I don't fully align with the entirety of the business, but there's something there, whether that's like the team, I meet someone there and I'm just like, I believe in you and I want to support you. Or I want to help there's a more junior marketing team and I feel like they just need like a senior partner to help them feel good in their own role. So there are, aspects too that I sometimes adjust for.
Yes. And you mentioned that when you left the second startup to run Tactile again, that you had an anchor client. Was like, how did you know or how did you prepare to go full time the first time and on the business and the second time? Like, was there anything that felt like you needed to financially prepare for?
Yes, and like we did not prepare well enough, and we like we're still facing the repercussions. So I'll give like a peek under the hood. So when I was at the startup I was at, I took mat leave and it was paid, but the way that it worked is that you could take, I think, 12 weeks of paid leave and then up to another 12 weeks, which is amazing, but it was unpaid. And so I met in the middle and I took half of that time unpaid. And then at the time, my older kiddo we were still paying for their school. They're in a public school now, but we were still paying for their school. And my younger one started with a nanny. And I was coming off of unpaid leave. And I was luckily at a full-time job where I had like a really nice 6-figure, like not mid 6 figures, low mid. Like in the middle.
Yeah,
of
6 figures
the
is
lowers.
so big of a range.
I know. I'm
right?
like, are you making $800,000 or $100,000? Like middle of the first half of it.
Yeah.
But I feel like so when I was preparing, we were also underwater, honestly, a bit from having unpaid leave and paying for 2 kids' childcare. And I was lucky in that when I took on the startup as an anchor client, technically the monthly amount that I was making was more than I was making as a full-time employee.
Oh, amazing.
So, and not just, consulting rates, again, it just for like slow periods, the fact that they weren't paying me benefits. There are all these like trade-offs, but also I was getting all of my benefits through my husband's
Right.
full-time job.
And that is actually something that is common. Like for the same work as a consultant, you would be making more, right? That because
Not always,
of the benefits.
but sometimes. Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah. I'm like in the best case scenario.
Right.
So that helped, but I still feel like we felt behind. And at that time, like we were questioning a lot, right? So when I was thinking about leaving the startup I was at, I was offered a job that would have been my dream job on paper. It was to run marketing for like an iconic New York cultural institution. And I was like, oh my God, this is my dream. Like I came up through the arts. I felt like so connected to it. It felt like a nice like expansion of my career, a pivot. But the salary was almost half of what I was making. And I built a spreadsheet. I was trying to like crunch the numbers and make it work. And it couldn't work. And I think that was helpful to like reference as in moments of like leaving the startup and consulting and thinking of, relaunching Tactile. I was like, okay, well, like the job I wanted was less money. So like fix that, right? Like I think sometimes like it's just challenging to have 2 kids and pay for all of the things. And like there are
Right, because you both had 2 great salary jobs and it still was a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's definitely, anyway, so it's like been a journey in like but I think ultimately the way I was able to set us up was that I had an anchor client that was paying me essentially more than they were paying me as a full-time employee for like on a 6-month contract. We had the benefits of my husband's job. And then also we were in a nanny share and my older kiddo was about to go to public school. So like all of these things were shifting around the same time.
Right. That's why it's so hard to plan. There was a lot of things moving that would completely change your budget.
Yeah.
Can you share? So it sounds like you've shared some of this already, but can you share how your business income journey has looked over time? And then how do you pay yourself? Because I think that's a big thing we don't think about. Or when people are hearing about businesses, they think, oh, the business makes this, so the founder makes this. But like it's a decision what you pay yourself and how you weigh like investing in the business versus paying yourself. So I'm curious, like, what are you paying yourself and what has that business income journey looked like? And because they're different.
Yeah. And it changes pretty frequently because depending on how much money the business is making. So, when I started Tactile the second time around and revived the business, I was like, okay, I'm going to be like really methodical about how much I pay myself. I'm going to create there's like a specific methodology of like how you set up the business where you like profit first, I think is what it's called. Yeah. And I was like, I'm going to do this. I love this idea, right? I have not done that. Like you're 2.5 and I still haven't done that. I feel like the way that I've invested in the business has always been dependent on the clients and also dependent on like how the business is evolving. So right now, I would say the majority of my business expenses are really on events because I do, like the way that I think about the events for Tactile right now is that I don't want to charge people for them. So I just started getting inquiries from brands for partnerships on those events, which is super exciting, but I've never wanted to charge for those.
And they're in person.
They're in person.
So they're expensive. Got it.
Yeah, they're expensive. And I'm lucky that I joined this co-working space called Fabric, which is like a community space. And so part of my membership includes the ability to host events. So I've been able to work things out so that this really is a core to the component of the business, but that definitely is like the biggest expense. The other is coffee meetings. I swear, the amount of like money, I was looking at my 2025 expenses and I was like, the amount of money that is poured into biz dev, right? Of just like, and networking of this coffee meeting here, this lunch here, which sounds lovely. And it is. And I feel like, again, like a true privilege to be like, I'm working and like getting coffee with a cool friend. And it's work. That's amazing. But it is an expense, right? And I think that in
Yes.
moments when the business has felt slow, it's actually felt really challenging to keep up with the demands of networking expenses when I feel like my business isn't doing as well.
How's your split? Because this is something that I always think about. Like, it's so important to be out there, be meeting with people, but then you actually have your work to do. Like, how
Yeah.
do you split your time and think
Now,
about
have you figured that out? I don't know if I figured that out yet.
No, I like go in a hole and then I'm like, wait, I haven't gotten any new business because
Yeah.
I've been working on the business. So I need to go
Yeah.
out of my hole. And then I overdo the out of the hole part and then I'm behind. So I was curious if you have like a methodology for that.
You know, I do and I don't. So I think that, so for me, there's like four components to working in and on the business, right? So working like in the business, sometimes it's just like the client work itself because I'm building a service based business. And so that can be all consuming. It's also what's paying my bills. So like it has to be the priority.
And do you have a
Um,
team or is it you working on it?
Not just me.
Got it.
I had, initially I was hiring people because I was building this agency model. I have hired like a VA to help with just like invoicing and just like some back office stuff, which has been really helpful. But otherwise, it's just me. But I would say like that piece of like the actual consulting work is a huge bulk of my time and it has to be the priority. The like other bucket is biz dev and meeting people. And that is so important. And I will say that the last client I was working with, I was with them for 6 months. I loved the work so much. And I honestly forgot to network. I swear. I was so embedded in the work and having such a blast that at the end of the contract, I was like, oh my God, I haven't like done anything to network or do biz dev.
Exactly. Yes.
I also was navigating like a small health scare. And so that also at the time, and so that also I think like put a halt on some of the networking piece. But that piece is really important. And the other piece is like marketing my own business. And I'm the best marketer for others and the worst marketer for myself. Like, I know what I need to do from a content marketing perspective. I haven't done it, right? Like all of these things, but that piece is really important. And then the events, which, like, again, don't generate income yet, but like are, if sure you've been to and hosted many an event, time consuming. So
Right.
those are these like four portions. And I would say like 70% of my time is on the consulting work. And then that 30% is split between those other three things. And they ebb and flow depending on the month.
Got it. And it makes sense. So I loved what you were sharing about how right now the events are costing money, but so you're investing in that part of
Yeah.
the business. And the vision is that eventually there will be brands and that will be a source of revenue.
Yeah.
So for context, because we're going to talk about raising kids in Brooklyn,
Yeah.
I want to talk about marketing first selfishly. But can you share about what can you share about your household income? Is it still
Yeah.
like the main source, like you're still in the mid 6-figure number between the mid and beginning?
Mid of the first
and
half.
then the mid on the first half. And then same with your partner or like what can you share
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah. So I feel like I'm so month to month right now, and I still haven't figured out like the full picture. I mean, I've done my taxes, so I have like a full picture of like income.
But that's not how it feels. Yeah.
But it's interesting. And I also think like the way in which you exist as a business owner is different in terms of your expenses. And, my coffees with potential clients are like a write off in the way that they aren't when you're like just working in house.
Yes. I want to make a calculator for this because I do think
Please.
I had someone on and she was like, I pay myself $3,000 a month. And she's like, that sounds low. But if you actually plug that in, net all the expenses she runs through, like it could be an $80,000 salary, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so interesting. So I feel so in the first year of the business, I had like a little bit of a slow period, but I think that revenue, so the not income, but revenue was at like 170 the first year of the business.
Amazing.
Which is less than what I was making as a salaried employee. But at the same time, and then like like totally blanking on like what it actually was like income wise, because I also made a lot of bets in terms of like event expenses, etc.
Right.
But it felt good to be like, oh my God, it's my first year of business. I'm like, I'm doing okay. Like it's
Yes.
working, right?
Right.
But I feel like this year it's been so up and down. So I've had some months where I'm like killing it. And I feel like I'm like, oh my God, like, am I going to get to a 30K month? That's the dream, right? And then there have been other months in like slow periods where I'm like, was that a 5K month? That feels, look, because again, that's 5K, that's in revenue, not profit, right? So
Right.
I think that the ups and downs have been really interesting, and it is hard not to question everything when you are in those moments of slowdown. And I've actually said this for founders. I'm like, oh, when you're a founder, calm is chaos, right? Like you're just like questioning your entire business, your vision, you're in an existential crisis in a way that you aren't when you're like an in-house employee. Uh,
Yes.
so
Especially because yours is retainer. So it like there is some semblance of continuity,
yeah,
but not if clients change.
yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a journey. But like, my husband has like a healthy salary and like was recently promoted a few months ago. So like that's really exciting. And he loves his work. And so that creates like a sense of stability. We also have
Yes.
benefits, right? Like I think it would be much more challenging if both of us worked for ourselves, even if we were earning the same amount, just losing that like baseline of benefits would make this near impossible.
Right. He's like the stable rock and you're
Yes.
like the upside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also
But I think that's unique, not unique, but I think it also is important context that you do need your salary. So you are optimizing for earning. It's not like you're
yeah.
like, this is just cake. It is like
Yeah.
important for your lifestyle. So I think that has you run your business in a certain way.
Yeah. I mean, I've had moments where I'm like, what would my business look like if I didn't need to make money? Like, would I just host events all day? I don't think so. I actually think that I probably would have my business structured similarly because I'm like, I really like this work and I love the clients I work with and all of those things. But I've definitely had to bake in earning from day one. And I've had to like turn down projects or opportunities because they weren't revenue generating. And like that does feel challenging, but it's just the reality.
Right. And I want to talk about marketing before we get into
Yeah.
kids and lifestyle
Yeah.
because, like, in all honesty, I'm not the best at marketing. I'm really good at
I
making
think
the
you're
thing.
great.
Thank you.
You're
I'm great,
killing
I
it.
think, at making the thing.
Yeah.
And then I hope that people come because the thing is so good. But I get that all the time. Like, I can't believe you don't have more followers. I can't believe you don't have more people in the money
Mm,
club. It's so amazing. And
yeah.
that's marketing. So
Yeah.
this section is selfish, but I think it will really
Yeah.
benefit other people too. You are a fractional CMO. Can you explain what that means and
Yeah.
what hiring you actually costs?
Yeah, totally. So it means really different things. First off, marketing is such a catch-all, right? And if you
Yeah.
ask like 5 people what marketing is, they will all give you a different answer. So I think it's a great question. Also, like, what is marketing? So it looks really different depending on the type of business. So right now I'm working like my anchor client is Newsweek, right? And the work that I'm doing with them is like I'm pretty embedded in the business and I'm consulting on their integrated marketing while also working on like content development, and building like a cross-functional content ideation process.
What is integrated marketing? Like just
Yeah,
multiple
like
areas?
jargon.
I'm like, ah.
It means that's also one of those. It means such different things in different places. So it
Okay.
means something really different in media than it does for like a consumer brand. And I have done both in both places. So integrated marketing within the context of like a media business is primarily like how that media business is working with brands across content programs. So like coming up with a, you know, big campaign for a brand and how they would activate that campaign across editorial partnerships, branded content, events, experiences, but all within that media company's universe. So that is like one piece. But the funny thing is, like, I've sort of expanded the role a bit to focus on that while also thinking about, but editorially, like, how do those campaigns or big projects and moments come to life in a way that is
Mm.
really exciting? So not just with but like with the other media businesses I've worked with, that always kind of plays a role too. So it's the brand side, but also on the editorial side, like how do we ensure that these incredible pieces of journalism actually receive the eyeballs that they deserve?
Amazing. And does it depend on the scope? Like when you expanded scope, did you increase your rate or like
No,
how do you decide
I
that?
should
Okay.
have. I think it's just because I'm like so enthusiastic about my clients that I'm always like, let me do more when I get into the door. So with them, it was like very specific. It's just like a small like month or like a small period of time. It's basically like through the summer. The last client I was working with was the skincare brand Do. And for them, it was initially a like get us through BFCM madness, more on like the life cycle side. But
BFCM.
sorry, oh my God, the jargon. Black Friday, Cyber Monday.
Okay, got it. I should know that actually.
I'm usually so much better at not using jargon, but I feel like I was yesterday, I was like deep in a marketing deck and it was just like so filled with buzzwords that I'm like, I need to reorient my brain a little
We
bit.
just like switched you into job mode.
I know. Oh my God. You're like, let's talk about marketing. I was like, all right, let's go. But with them, it was initially like, oh, get us through this, like, the craziness of holiday. And it was a little bit more of a like, hey, would love your strategic brain, but also we literally need hands on the work. We need people who are like down to be like, here's pie in the sky. And also like, I'm going to be in your Klaviyo and like setting up campaigns. Like I will do. But then that extended as they were like in this amazing high growth moment to really start to think about marketing across the board. So again, it was really this like embedded role where I just kind of felt like an employee for 6 months and it was super fun. And I think it's the same with Newsweek and it was the same with this like video editing platform I was working with. So those types of clients, it's like I'm basically their, depending on the client, like their head of marketing for a period of time before they're ready to bring that on. Or with Do, it was a little bit more advisory and also do the work, but still like playing that leadership role for a period of time. So it really tends to be a little bit more of a like, you're our employee for a bit.
So they basically price it based on what the role would cost.
Yeah,
Like you could kind of look
exactly.
at the salary of what that role is.
Yeah. And I would say that like it really ranges depending on the business, the industry that they're in. It's very, very case by case, like
Like
real
that
tough.
iconic brand that was
Yeah.
lower. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Or like a an AI tech company is going to have a larger salary allocated for a CMO role down the line than like an early stage fashion brand might, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I think like I am the most creative when I have my hands on a couple of different industries because I feel like there's interesting overlap between all of these and I love to connect the dots. But I do account for that as well as I'm building the business of like, if I have a period of time where I'm working with a brand that I feel really excited about in a fractional capacity, but they're not able to hit my rate, then I need to ensure that I'm trying to counterbalance that.
And then for the individual company, like the small
Yeah.
businesses, it's 3,000, you said, for the program.
Yeah.
3,000 a month?
It's actually like for total. So that program is like it has really specific guardrails. So the way it works is like it's a package of like one-on-one. We basically do like an intake, a kickoff call. I hear all about the business and then I help them build out their like go-to-market strategy or their broader marketing strategy. We do it together. And then we have like a series of one-on-one calls. And then I basically have like an open Slack policy for 3 months. So they can just quick chat me anything. So, it's like we come up with a plan, but that plan is always iterative, right? Or things
Yeah.
come up. So then that Slack is open. So it's $3,000 for that entire thing. But there's guardrails in terms of, I'm not like actioning the work. I'm really just like guiding them through it. It's almost like borrowing from the coaching model a bit.
I
Yeah.
love it. Okay. And so you have this, you've seen inside businesses, you've seen their marketing budgets, like all sizes, industries.
Yeah.
How should business owners decide on their marketing budget? Like is it a
Oh my God.
percentage of revenue? Are there rules of thumb? Like, what do you see?
Yeah, it's so industry specific. And I used to joke that my main value proposition for early stage startups was preventing them from wasting money. Because like the thing is that it looks really different depending on, number one, if you have VC funding, right? Because your growth goals are different. A lot of brands that I work with that are VC backed are really like charging towards their next milestone to raise their next round. I have a lot of feelings about that. Talk for hours about.
Burn. Yeah.
I know it's not a model that I love, but so that looks really different than like an early stage startup. So when I'm talking to like a very early stage founder, I usually am telling them to not spend as much or hold off as long as they can until they understand what channels are working. Because I've just seen early stage startups waste so much money on like meta ads before they even know who their audience is, before they even know what's going to perform, and also before they actually have the money to make that worth it for them. So I would say for like really, really early stage brands, I'm like, don't spend anything at all. And actually don't hire me yet. Do the early stage program or like, let's, have coffee and I'll give you some advice and then come back to me like once you figure these things out. So that
Because
I
then
think,
the money they're spending is coming back to them.
yeah,
Right.
and I'm like I mean, this probably makes me a bad business person, but I'm pretty honest. Like when I meet a startup and I feel like they're too early for me to work with them, like I can suss that out pretty early on in the conversation. And I'm really honest about it because I think the last thing I want is for a startup to waste their like small marketing budget on paying my fee. And then, what are they like, what do they do after that? So that is like one piece. There's like, if you're like a D2C brand, there's like specific math around like, like X% of revenue and like is spent. And you also, it depends on like the efficiency of your paid media spend and all of, there's like kind of easy media math that can be done. But I think what's so case by case and challenging is like, if you're a Substack creator, right? And you're dependent on subscription revenue essentially and starting to be dependent on brand partnership revenue, like audience engagement and audience growth is really critical to your business. And we are seeing like a little bit of a plateau on the network effect that everyone was sold on. And so, it does start to help to think about creative paid media opportunities there. But again, it should be like such a small sliver of your revenue to start to even before you pump money into these things.
To make sure it's working and that, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious because you were saying you've worked for startups that just like were wasting money. I want to know where you think we're skimping. Like, where are you like, people are not spending enough? And like a situation where you're like, oh my gosh, you're just lighting money on fire in this case.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, I think like paid media for early stage founders, I find them lighting money, right? Like I was working with a startup and they came to me and their budget was really small, right? They had like a 7K a month marketing budget, which again, like depending on where you are in your business, that may sound really big, that may sound really small. And there were no marketers on the team and they were spending 6K of that on meta ads. And they approached me because they were like, oh, we have like 1K left in this marketing budget we've allocated. I don't know where they came up with the math of like why that was the budget based against their revenue. And I was like, okay, and it wasn't working, right? Like they weren't seeing a return on that investment. They were they were like, oh, but like we've acquired new users from this spend. We've acquired customers from this spend, but like they were not even breaking even. They were losing money. And so I think that example was like a really good one where it wasn't because those were never going to work. It was because they actually didn't do the foundational work to understand their customer, to understand where does their customer hang out online? Is it like, does it make sense to pump this into meta ads, or would it actually make sense to pour it into affiliate marketing? Would it make sense to do like very curated creator collabs? Would it make sense to do an event, right? So I think that piece is like, it's very easy. It's funny because I'm like giving marketing advice and then also going to like crap on marketing advice, but like it's very easy to find yourself in a marketing algorithm on Instagram if you're a founder that's telling you how to like 10x your business by pumping money into the meta ads. And it's easy if you're an early stage founder that is under resourced to be like, oh, great. I like downloaded this ebook and like it told me to do this. And so I'm going to do that. And then go down this like scary path. But those foundationals, which sound kind of boring, like understand your customer and like build out a strategy, are so important before you start pumping like a small marketing budget into paid media.
And it sounds like there's not like here's your marketing budget. It's 5% of revenue or whatever it is. And then it should be going to these 5 places. It's like when you were just talking through it, it sounded very specific. Like, this is where my people hang out. This is what I think it will do better with affiliates because we need to build some trust here. Or I think it will do better with ads. Like, it sounds like some people might not need to do any ads. Some might need to do more affiliates. Some might just do only ads. It's very specific to the strategy. Would you say that's the
Yeah.
case?
And the life stage, right? Like if you are a like VC backed beauty brand who is like not spending on meta ads, I would be shocked, right? Like then like if you are in the business, if you are like a CPG brand who is reliant on D2C revenue, like you're like, yes, we need to find where your people hang out online, but a big chunk of your revenue probably is going to be poured in meta ads and
Right.
TikTok, right? But I think the other piece is like that I see some brands, come up against challenges with is the creative piece, right? Like, like the creative, fueling those campaigns with enough creative to make them work is actually quite expensive too. Content creation is not free, right? Like earned media, owned media is not free. It just different. The money is spent in a different way.
Right.
So I think that's the other thing that I see brands struggle with is like allocating the budget that they need first to ensure that they have the creative for those campaigns for them to actually work. Yeah. And,
Love it.
there are definitely brands out there that are like, we don't need money anymore. We'll just like, use AI influencers and generate content via, this platform. And like, again, I have like, complex opinions on like AI and where it's an incredible tool and where it's, not an incredible tool. But I think that I haven't seen those work. Like I've seen like the math where like people are like, oh, but I spent X amount of dollars and I, 100X my investment. But I also think that like consumers are becoming more discerning. And like the reality is that nothing wins on social and on paid like something created by a person.
So you think the gap will kind of narrow as we get more savvy to see it?
I think so. I think people are just searching for proof of life. I'm like joking that like, the future of marketing is events and direct mail, right? Like things that you can touch, feel, that like things that are tactile. So yeah, I think that we're in a shift. We're going to keep swinging in this like direction of like that the direction that it's going in, but I think like we'll swing back a little bit.
All right. Before we get into lifestyle expenses, kids, just can you give advice or tips for 3 types of business owners? So first,
Yeah.
and you kind of shared this a little bit, but what would you share with a business owner who has no marketing budget at all? Like, what should we be doing?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So it's dependent on the type of business you have. So
Okay.
I'll give like a quick case study that I think is fascinating. So there's this yogurt brand called Sour Milk, and they are I think they're pretty new, but they're everywhere right now. And part of the reason is because the founder posted on LinkedIn that she was going to give anyone in a New York City office, she would hand deliver free yogurt for their office, right? And who doesn't want free yogurt for their office? And also the branding is really cute, so that helps. But like it blew up on LinkedIn, right? And all of these people were like, me. Like I commented and I was like, I'm hosting an event for women in marketing and media. And she was like, great, I will hand deliver you yogurt. And the reason it was so successful is because then there was like significant earned media value because then all of these people that got their amazing free yogurt were then sharing photos of the free yogurt on LinkedIn. And I think it's a great example of if you have a product and you can afford to give it away for free and it's something that people are excited about and you can, position it in the right way, you can see such a significant upside. And like generosity is an amazing tool if you don't have a marketing budget. And then also it allows you to understand your customer. Like, who are the people that responded to this offer that we're giving, right? So I think that, like, if you can gift things to the right people early on when you don't have a budget, you can see a pretty significant upside.
Love it. And what about 1,000 a month budget?
1,000 a month budget. I'm sorry to give the like it depends on your business response
I
again.
know.
I'm like, it's
but
so
if you
dependent.
have an example of someone, that's actually really tangible.
So if you are a service-based business and you have $1,000 a month, I would say one of the highest performing channels I've seen is those like classified ads in a Substack newsletter or affiliate marketing with like specific creators. Because if you're a service-based business, you have $1,000 a month to spend, odds are that you have a really clear sense of who your customer is, right?
Mm.
And if you don't do that work first before you spend that money, and then maybe it's $2,000 a month because you spend a couple of those months figuring these things out. But once you know who your person is, you can really niche down and get really specific. Find those people who maybe only have 5,000 subscribers, but those subscribers are so deeply engaged and have such trust in the person speaking to them, and spend it there. Listen, I've seen people with $1,000 pump it into Meta ads and actually see a return, but more often than not, I'm just like, give it to the creators, give it to the like independent writers who are out there building a real connection with their audience.
And then last one, 10,000 a month.
Okay.
We're building up.
I love it. I'm like creators again. So at the end,
just more of them.
Yeah, just more of them with bigger followings. I think that I have seen brands, especially like I have a client, for example, who is like a prosumer tech company. And they had like a pretty healthy budget. It was more
what
than
is
10K.
Prosumer?
Sorry. It's professional consumer. So if you have a consumer tech. So Dropbox is like a prosumer company, as an example.
Got it.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So it serves like a professional need, but it's self-service. So you're not like buying it through your business. So because they do have like a very specific target, though, they were putting money into like LinkedIn ads, right? And I have, complex feelings about LinkedIn ads as a whole, but they were seeing like some return. They were seeing some performance. They were putting money into paid search. They were seeing some return on that. And then we did one partnership with a YouTube creator and increased their monthly recurring revenue by 100% in 1 month. And it was about a quarter of the monthly spend that across social or paid social and search. And the reason was because, especially for this company that was targeting a professional consumer who is a little bit more discerning, who has like a very specific set of needs, the response to pay for their product was so much greater from this one YouTube creator who had built this incredibly engaged community. And there was such a level of trust that you're just not going to get if you're seeing something for the first time on LinkedIn. So when you have more budget, like the ideal thing is you build a flywheel, right? So you have all of these things working together. But when your budget, even though 10K for I think an early stage startup sounds like a lot, it's actually like such a small sliver when you have other brands and competitors spending, 100K a month. And so partnering with those people that have built that audience, that have built trust, where you can do something bespoke and exciting with them, can move the needle so much.
Amazing. All right, kids. You're raising kids in Brooklyn. Yeah. You're obsessed with it. What does it cost? Like, what expenses surprised you most so far?
That's so much money. Why is it so much money? It's crazy. So childcare is like the biggest one, right? So our older kiddo is at a public school. We are really lucky that the public school has free after school. So that's life-changing in terms of our expenses. But my daughter is in like private twos program. Next year, a private threes program. And it is like $3,500 a month. I'm not exactly doing the math right because like that.
And it's full day.
It's full day. So it's 8 to 6. Okay. And that is like that monthly. I have to look at the like math again, but that monthly is not for over 12 months. It's like for the school year plus camps and things like that. So it's still like a rent somewhere else, right? And that adds up. And that is not including summer camp. Because, my older kiddo is at public school, but we still need support in the summer, right? So like we still have to pay for camp and like and camp is so expensive. It's insane.
It's bananas. Yeah.
I'm like this, and I keep getting served these like ads or posts that are like, go to Spain for 2 weeks and like camp is $50 a day. And I'm like, I don't think the math is quite going to match because I'm like, what do you do with your apartment? What do you like? You still have to fly there. You still have to eat all of the things. But I'm like, I have never been so like interested in than this summer of paying for 2 kids in camp. So anyway, the childcare expense is such a huge portion of the expense.
And what is like a weekly? Do you have a weekly camp average that you can share?
Yeah. So it ranges. So we're lucky that my older kiddo's school has a camp that is loved by the kids. That is like half the price of a lot of the other NYC camps. And it runs through all of July. But most camps I've seen range from like $600 a week to $800 a week, depending on the camp, especially if you're doing extended day. So that's really and also, as an aside, a lot of camps don't have extended day. So if you're a like household where both parents are working like normal business hours, you're shuffling so much because you're like, who can do pickup today? I'm like, who wants to be bad at their job today?
Right. Get out a few hours early and not focus
Yeah.
for the rest of the day. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
And you mentioned
definitely
you had a nanny share. Do you still have that?
no, we don't.
Okay.
We exited our nanny share when our daughter went to her like juice program. And I would say the cost is actually roughly the same as it was like when I looked at like the hourly over time. So in theory, it's the same, but sometimes I'm like, I think with all the camps and all that, like it's actually more.
More to do the school.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what I know that they're not that old yet, but what has been the most expensive life stage? Like it was
Oh
before the
my
public
God.
school when you had to pay this, probably.
Yeah. I think when both kids were like, when we were paying for childcare for both kids, but I also am like, eh, I think the like newborn stage for my daughter, because my older kiddo we were still paying for their school. And we also were just like, newborns are expensive, right? So like older kids are expensive because like food is expensive, berries, though
The
no one's
berry
eating berries
budget.
right now. Yeah, the berry budget is like so real. And now with these two people, like kiddos eating so many strawberries, I'm like, I need a new job just to fund the strawberry budget. But wild. I know. I'm like,
Yeah, 1 can a day or 1 pint a day or whatever it is.
it's insane. But I think the newborn stage threw us a little bit more so because we're so sleep deprived, especially when we went from 1 to 2 kids, that I was like, we were just like throwing money at the problem. And I also wasn't like getting paid for half of my leave. And like, that piece I think was challenging, and just being like a tired parent who
Yes.
also wants to make sure that they're older. Like we were so conscious of our older kiddos transition from like being an only to having a sibling, even though they were so excited about it. We were like ice cream every day, all summer, all these little things that over time we were like, whoa, our household budget on just like food and like convenience spending is so much higher than it should be.
Got it. And at that time you had childcare for the new one, ch- school or childcare for the old
Yeah.
one. So a lot of double paying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a wild it was a wild journey. And at the time too, I was making a decent salary, but my husband hadn't been promoted yet too, so was making like a lot less than they're making now. And so that was also like playing into it. So yeah, it was definitely like a lot of unknown expenses, and I feel like we're still kind of like digging ourselves out.
I actually do that calculation when we travel in the summer. Like I net the camp cost against the travel
Yeah.
because I'm like, if you're taking some time off from work to go on a trip, like and it's during camp, you are not paying for that camp for those times.
I
Curious
know.
for kids or just like life in general, where do you tend to save versus splurge?
Yeah. I probably need more saves and less splurges, real talk. But I would say food is like a splurge for me. Like first of all, I love to cook. I feel like gain so much joy out of cooking. But also my older kiddo is kind of a picky eater, or a particular eater. And so I feel like I'm really invested in finding new ways to like get the household excited about food. So that is definitely like the biggest splurge. Also around like the convenience spending of that, right? So there are definitely like nights a week where we're like, oh my God, we're so like, what a long day. Let's get takeout, right? So I think that is like a big splurge that I feel good about. Also, I also invest in like the quality of food, all of those things. Where we save, like, where do we save? Oh my
Where?
God. Well, you know what? We got rid of our car about a year
Mm.
and a half ago. So I don't drive. I like grew up in New York and never learned how to drive. Actually, I have a license, but I probably shouldn't be allowed on the road. So I've never driven on a
Look
highway. I don't
out
know.
for Erika if you're driving.
Truly, I'm like, how do I have this license? I've never driven on an actual highway. Like this should not be allowed. Anyway, uh,
You know your
aside
limits.
from that,
That's what's important.
yeah. Uh, but so the car, my husband is like the driver in our household. It is a convenience to have a car, especially in the winter, especially with 2 kids, seeing family, all of those things. But we weren't driving it enough to justify the expense every month. We were leasing our car. And so we actually broke our car lease, and we like negotiated a deal to get out of our car lease that still was able to save us money. and we don't have that expense anymore. And there are moments where I'm like, oh, this would be so much easier if we still had our car. But it has actually been like such a weight lifted. Also for my husband who had to do all of the outside parking since I don't drive. Also just like a mental weight.
Yes, to be thinking about when I have to move it. And now if you need the car for something, you just take an Uber or Lyft, or you do Zipcar. Like, have you gotten cars in other ways, or you really haven't needed it?
We are benefiting from Jesse's parents living in Long Island and having 2 cars and being retired. So we have been able to borrow their car. Like last weekend, we went up to Kinderhook to visit one of my dearest friends and her fam, and we drove my husband's parents' car. So it was
Got
great.
it. Yes, that's awesome. Okay, amazing. All right, a few more, and then I'll let you go. What's something about your finances people would never guess?
Ooh. I'm like that some months we're like, how are we going to do this forever? Because I do think that,
It's very relatable.
yeah, I just think that when I talk to people and I'm like, oh, I'm working as a fractional CMO and I'm working with all of these incredible clients, and there are months where I do feel like I'm killing it. I think that the assumption is that we're killing it financially, right? And my husband has a great job and a great title and all of these things. But I think that the real talk is that we aren't. We have some months where we're like really having an existential crisis about our life choices. So I think that is one thing that people would probably be surprised to know.
And what are you working? And I think that's very relatable too.
Yeah.
What are you working on affording next? Like, this was about how you afford your current life, but what is that next thing?
Yeah. It's interesting because it changes a bit. So we are renters, and I think that there are aspects of being in New York, we're just like forever renters. We accept that. But then we have moments of being like, it would be really nice to one day own our own home in New York City. Very modest, tiny little home. And that is something that we think about, like, what would we need to make that a reality? What would that look like in a way that made the most sense? What do we need to earn financially? What do we need to save up? So that I think is one. But then in moments where I'm like, we'll never own, we'll be renters forever. I think the other is just affording our life as is without ever having to worry if the well is going to break. So I think that right now we have months of being like, we're fine. And then months of being a little stressed about like cash flow. And so I would love to get to a place where we can maintain our lifestyle without ever having to worry about where we are financially.
And would that be like a savings buffer, or just smoothing, like the income smoother? What would it take for that?
Yeah, savings always like cures all ails.
Yes.
Buffer. I also will say that like for me, like I find financial stress extraordinarily stressful. I have like my own baggage and money stories associated with just like not having money and not being able to afford things, and just like from like where I came from and where I grew up. So I think that for me, like my threshold is probably different than others. So I think that it's the buffer, but I actually think it's just like the salary. And I think, transparently, I love that. Part of why I shifted to like a fractional CMO model is because I was like, what would it look like? Does it make sense to go back in-house at some point if I have a client where I just fall in love with the team and I fall in love with the product, and I just didn't want to shut that door and like close entirely, partially because I do think that even though I love variety and I love meeting all these people, I think in my heart of hearts, I'm sort of an in-house gal because I love the team, like working with the team and being really embedded, and I care so much. But also because there is an element of financial stability. Yes, like the job market is insane and no job is ever stable, but I know that I can like garner a decent salary if I go in-house. And so that piece is always just like in the ether.
Right. And you've built around that as an option, that optionality. Yeah. It's incredible. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on, talking about your business, marketing, giving us this inside look. Like, you really can't find this anywhere else. Where can everyone find you and support your work?
Oh, thank you for asking. So if you want to go to wearetactile.com, that's the website for all of my work, consulting, events. Come to an event. Like, that's the best way to like chat. I feel like I'm really always excited to meet new people. And then if you want to follow me on Instagram, I'm just Erika with a K, Erika Alpern, Alpern.
Amazing. Everyone, follow Erika, go to her events if you can, and thank you so much again.
Thank you. This was so lovely.
Thank you so much for listening to How Do You Afford This? If you love this inside look into how people are actually affording their lives, follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We have new episodes dropping every week, and trust me, you do not want to miss them. And if you're enjoying the show, please share this with a friend. You'll get credit for introducing them to their favorite new podcast, and you'll be helping me on my mission to make crafting a wealthy life more accessible, more transparent, and a whole lot more fun. One more thing before you go. If this got you fired up to chase your own money goals, come hang out with us in the Money Club. It's a community of ambitious women building wealth together. And on average, members put an extra $10,000 towards their money goals in the first year. Come see what it's all about at thefiscalfemme.com/money-club. See you next week.